Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast where I bring in the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and entrepreneurship to help you harness your own inner tenacity and drive your life and career forward. Folks, my guest today on the podcast is Mike Smerklo, co-founder and managing director of Next Coast Ventures. Mike is an experienced entrepreneur, investor, and business leader driven by the desire to turn ideas into reality. And having bought and scaled small businesses into a publicly traded company worth nearly $1 billion in value, he has a deep understanding of hard work, dedication, and grit that truly powers successful entrepreneurship. And today, as a co-founder and managing director of Next Coast Ventures, Mike is a champion for a new generation of entrepreneurs building disruptive companies in big markets. His book, Mr. Monkey and Me, is what we call a, quote, real talk guide for entrepreneurs who want to cut through the noise and cultivate a mindset that supports greatness. So we're going to have some real talk with Mike in just a moment here, and I'm excited to talk more about his journey and unpack it, so let's get to it. Mike, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thanks, Adam. I feel like I should call you the pause, though. Is it the pause, or is it Adam?
Yeah, you could call me whatever you want. The pause, yeah. Adam, it works. Anything you want. So let's dig into it. So, when I start to unpack and do research on my guests, I like to go way back. And you grew up in this little town called Toledo, Ohio. What were the people, who were the people that raised you, and what was it like growing up there? I think that this insight is really going to lay the foundation to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it is. It's why I wrote the book. In terms of just mental mindsets, to start back, I was raised by a single mother. I've listened to a lot of your shows, which are wonderful. And you kind of hear this theme a lot of times with entrepreneurs. It was came from nothing, didn't have great role models. The folks around me were all blue collar, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of divorce, a lot of discord. And really, I looked around at some point and said, it's got to be something better than this. But I had no role models or idea of how to get to something other than that. But it was, it was tough. I grew up inner city Toledo, but was fortunate that I had a single mother that really gave me the push to get out.
Well, that's good you had your mom, but there really wasn't anyone else around to really give you that pat on the back and said, go get it, right?
No, I tried the book. We'll talk about it in the book, but the book talks about some colorful characters, my Uncle Joe, my grandma, and just kind of the views they had of the world, which were, must be nice, suck it up, you'll never get out of here, was kind of the ethos around it. And so my mental maps as a youngster were not exactly positive or filled with enthusiastic encouragement.
That's so interesting too. You look back at those characters in your life and, we're talking people that lived in poverty that had a foot on top of their head, and they had to project their negativity and experiences on you. When was the first time in your life, at what age do you recall, when you started to break through into having those moments of positivity? Was there like a defining moment, or was it just growing up and maturing and coming into your own?
No, it was a little bit of both, as always. But I just remember, and I talk about these poignant moments where I was playing basketball in Toledo in the inner city, and I just remember thinking, there's got to be something better than this. And I heard this funny story. It's kind of an interesting moment where sure. I was driving to school one morning, and I had this beat up old car. And it's a gray January morning. I'm going to school, and my car, we had this thing called had floorboards that had rusted out. So if you grew up in the Midwest, right, you understand this concept. And I'm going through a puddle. And when I always yell puddle to my friends, that meant lift your damn shoes up because the water is going to come up into the car. And I went through this puddle, and I was like, fuck, we're going to use the F-bomb a lot here. But I was like, God, this has got to be something here. And I remember this voice comes on the radio and said, it was a mattress commercial. It's a weird way to start the podcast, but the mattress commercial said, you're going to spend 2/3 of your life doing, working and other things, but 1/3 of your life is going to be sleeping. So why don't you have a great mattress? And I can remember this moment, and I was driving by an oil refinery plant that we lived behind, and the smell was just pungent smell. And I thought, what do you do? Like, a third of my life sleeping. What about the other 2/3? And it was the first time I can remember thinking, yeah, like, wait a minute, like, can I be proactive and thoughtful about the other 2/3 of my life? And that really started it. That I kind of dove into some old self-help tapes that my mom had laying around, and really tried to begin reprogramming mind through college. That's when I started to kind of shape my mind.
Good on you, man. And I mean, you jumped right into the big boys, early on, at Ernst & Young as an auditor. I mean, where did that who has a dream of becoming an auditor at Ernst & Young? Or EY as they call it these days.
Yeah, and I had pause. I want to get the fuck out of Toledo, Ohio and make some money. And I had no idea how to do that. I went to college. I literally, stumbled on accounting and was like, well, and it's so funny because this is way back in 1991. And man, you made $28,000 as an auditor. Like, what? Wow. More money than anyone in my family had ever made in a year. And so it was really just go get a job, learn business, and make all this big money. I at the time didn't know how I was going to spend it.
Which EY office are you working out of?
I went to Chicago. So I left. I went to Miami of Ohio for undergrad, and then went to EY in Chicago.
I mean, listen, Chicago's a big town by conventional standards. What was that like? You're one of the big four firms. Yeah. It's prestigious. There's lots of people there making lots of money. You're involved with heavy client conversations. I mean, was it intimidating? What was that feeling like, in those first, few months, first year?
Yeah, I'd say like three of primary emotions. When go back to one, it was like intimidating because I was around. I didn't know how to be a business person. I mean, I'd
be professional. Like, that's such a problem these days, right? Like
wear a suit and at the time, show up. Two, it was inspirational because I was like, wow. Like, I remember seeing at one point someone whispering like, that person makes six figures. Because when I was growing up, it was like six figures was this mysterious, never land. And I was like, wow, that guy makes $100,000 a year. And then the third thing, I hated the job, right? So it was this triad of emotions. But I remember thinking, okay, I'm in the game. I'm going to learn this thing. I hate this fucking job. I don't want to do this. But if I can and it's a big thing, I think, for a younger professional. I thought if I could do it for 2 years, I'll have the foundation and I'll build from there. And that's what I did.
What'd you hate about it?
I just hated it was just not inspirational. And then it kind of led to my eventual entrepreneurial path. It wasn't moving. And I looked at the people that were doing it who were super talented, but I thought, man, I don't want to do this. I want to inspire. I want to lead. I just had that kind of thing in my gut that I want to do something different.
Why'd you think Lehman would be any better?
Lehman was more. Then I got recruited to go to Lehman. I had to take a step back. Lehman was all about the prestige, Wall Street. I'd watched Wall Street, the movie with Michael Douglas way back when, and just
Gordon Gekko, man.
Gordon Gekko, baby. How can I, Gordon Gekko and Pretty Woman, like the two movies from the 80s or 90s. I'm like, that's what it's going to like. But I really did think I saw it as an opportunity to improve my resume, work with super smart people, which I did, worked 100 hours a week, killed myself for 2 years, and learned a ton. And I felt if I had those two things, then I could go from there.
What kind of step, you said you took a step back? How so?
Well, because most of the people that were, and it's kind of a repeat of my history of my career, I had to go back and do things. Most of the people that were in my analyst class were right out of school. And they were all out of Ivy League schools. So they were Princeton and Brown and Harvard schools. I didn't even, I just could find them on a map. And I had to go back 2.5 years out of college and be around all of these, newly minted Ivy League graduates and explain that I was from Toledo, Ohio, and went to Miami of Ohio. And they looked at me like I think they thought I should have like hay coming out of my hair or something.
Yeah.
And overalls.
It's so funny, but that's resilience, man. And I think that goes back to your DNA of pushing through, and you've always had that built into you that you want to move as far away from that life as possible.
Yeah. It was
and
just
that's not what you want to be doing, and the drive behind it, and that's incredible. So when do you think you had that first entrepreneurial itch? Was it something that inspired you, or is that something that came to fruition?
Yeah, I think there's a progress. I mean, there's part of this whole thing of like the scarcity mindset, which, when I first came out, I was just like, I need to get educated. Then it was like, I need to make some money. And once I started to make a little bit of money, I still felt, still probably today, still have some scarcity mindset. But I thought, okay, now that I've got some foundation, then I went and got my MBA at Northwestern, and I suddenly, put myself in a different category after 5 years out of undergrad. I went out
Smart.
to Wilkins, Silicon Valley in the late 90s, and that's where it really hit. In business
Yeah.
school,
So
I'd written, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, continue. Sorry.
No, see, like in business school, I wrote down, like, I think I want to run something. It was just kind of this inspiration. And then I went out to the Silicon Valley in the late 90s, and I was like, I'm absolutely going to do something entrepreneurial. It was that strong, just the energy.
Yeah, let's dig into that because I love that era. I mean, that's a dot-com boom. How did you even get on the radar of Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz? And for anyone who doesn't know them, I don't know why you're listening to this show, but yeah, please.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's certain themes that run through your life, and fortune and luck is a big one in mine. And I don't mean that like in a humble brag. I've just been lucky. Like, you kind of work hard, put yourself in a bunch of scenarios. But I was working at Morgan Stanley. I left Lehman, went to work at Morgan, and Morgan was the absolute best place to be in the craziest time in technology.
Yep.
I was a junior guy, but there was so much going on that the senior guys were just basically saying, like, go cover this. And so Mark and Ben had just sold Netscape to AOL for like $8 billion, which at the time was crazy. And they were starting something new, and they needed capital. And one of my senior guys said, well, Mark wants to have breakfast with you to talk about raising debt. Like, fucking Mark Andreessen. I mean,
Yep.
He was only 28. I was probably 29. He had been on the cover of Time already. And I sat down and had breakfast with him. And I always tell the story, like, I sat down and, like, Mark is one of the smartest humans on the planet. And within 4 minutes, I'm like, Mike, don't say anything stupid. So I'm just trying to banter and keep up. But luckily, halfway through, I said, okay, really want to understand what you're trying to do. And he said, well, I got a better idea. Why don't you come be part of it? And it was, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Love to. And then I had to go interview with Ben, and they offered me a job. And I got to be one of the first. There was 4 founders of LoudCloud, which became Opsware, which became Ben's book, which became Andreessen Horowitz. But I got to go there right after the formation, all the way through IPO. It was magical.
Incredible. So let's talk about those early days. Let's talk about Ben and Mark. And what would you say is a golden lesson that you'll learn from either them collectively or individually? That you something that you really applied, that you really was a foundational element for all your future success. There had to be. I mean, you're around greatness.
So much. I mean, it was, first and foremost, I give the example. It was like watching a marathon on TV and then like dropping in to Kenya and running with 2-hour marathoners. It was like that intense, just everything.
Good analogy right there.
But the two things I would took away, and there's so many, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but I would say, like, one from Mark was, if you're going to do something, dream big. And he was just, even then, like 20 years ago, he was just like, how do I build something big and meaningful? And I'm not going to waste time with the small, which just kind of inspirational, but also instructive. And then Ben, on building a company, Ben said something really early on. He said, the first 25 employees are the only ones that matter. What? And I was like, luckily I was in that group. I was like
that got him one of those 25, right?
Yeah, exactly. But Ben had this way. He's got this magical way of just being right at it. And I said, I don't understand that. That seems derogative. And he said, no, I'm not discounting the other. He's like, but the first 25 are the ones who then go hire the next 50 or 100. And so all the culture, all the training, all the vibe are established by those first 25. So I'm going to put all my energy into getting people like you, and then you'll take that and cascade it. And it's such a basic lesson, but when you think about hiring, scaling, culture in a company, it just stuck with me even to today.
The podcast is brought to you in partnership with Vincere, the recruitment operating system, the all-in-one tech platform purposely built for recruitment and staffing to unify your front, middle, and back office operations. Vincere is designed by recruiters for recruiters. Both the company and the platform are the unique creations of successful recruiters who sold their business, saw a need for a better recruitment tech, and made it happen. And if you're looking to upgrade your recruitment tech and give your recruiters a new modern operating system, visit vincere.io/podcast. That's vincere.io/POZCAST for an exclusive offer. Thanks. It's been reported that Opsware, the company that you recruited for, was one of the first to talk about cloud and SaaS. Was that something that was spoken about internally a lot there, or did you guys know you were defining a new category?
It's it's amazing. I mean, what Ben and Mark have done, like every time, and even I think that's why they're amazing venture capitalists, is they were just early, probably too early. We were too early there, but we used the word cloud in 1999. No one really knew what cloud was, but they had this vision for computing, which is now basically the foundation for every emerging growth company or big company. But we weren't really doing SaaS as it was defined, but it was just coming to fruition. Mark Benioff had just founded Salesforce. We were trying to do things, in the cloud, but candidly, it was mostly manual, non-internet enabled. So there was a bunch of trends that we were on the forefront of, but the business really didn't emerge and become AWS, for example, because of some missing technologies. It only came through the next couple of years.
Yeah, so let's kind of get to where we are now. So bringing it forward to Service Source, why'd you make that decision to buy a company rather build one from scratch? I think there's a lot of lessons to learn within that.
Yeah, so I left unceremoniously. I've been pretty good about keeping my network up, but with Mark and Ben, it was a frustrating time. It's hard to imagine 20 years ago, the dot-com bubble had burst, 9/11 had happened, we were at war, we were in a recession, and somehow I still thought, I want to be an entrepreneur. I talked to a bunch of my mentors, and they said, well, there's only one problem. You don't have an idea. And so I again, serendipitously heard about this vehicle called a search fund. You raise a small amount of money from angels, and then you go look for a company to buy versus start. And I looked at my skills, took an inventory, and thought, that's probably a much better application for me than starting something from scratch. And that's what I did. And I got really lucky. I bought a great company and ran it for 13 years.
What were a couple of those traits that you were looking for in the company to purchase?
Yeah, well, it's become a much more established asset class now. And my firm, Next Coast, actually has a fund dedicated to it. But at the time, it was buy a stable business, look for the kind of idea was a Warren Buffett premise, which is buy a business that even an idiot couldn't screw up because you're kind of an idiot. Not to be pejorative to myself, but I'd never run anything. So you're trying to find a stable business, profitable, that had some potential. And the idea is you buy it from the founders, you spend a year or so learning from them, and then you try and improve it. And that's what we did.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's get into Next Coast. How's it different? I mean, what's point of difference, right? I mean, listen, I'm a recruiter by trade. I recruited in the marketing, media, advertising industry, and every company, like, all right, when you talk to candidates, we talk about culture and it's the people there. I'm like, that's bullshit. I mean, is everybody different? Of course. Like, what the hell does that mean? But what makes it different? Like, how have you infused all this experience into making it impactful, especially for the younger folks joining your team?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like we joke at Next Coast, it's a venture capital firm. We're $500 million of AUM. We've invested in 70 plus companies, but we're giving dollars to people who want dollars, right? So, we're fortunate that I see amazing entrepreneurs every day. So how do you differentiate yourself? What we hang our hat on is everyone around our investment team has been operators. And for an early stage venture capital firm, which we are, that's quite unique. What we say to our entrepreneurs is we've all missed payroll, we've all hired, fired, we've all woke up at 3 a.m. crying, wondering how the hell we were gonna, what the hell we were gonna do with our business. So we've been there, done that, so to speak. But I think the additive to that is we try and balance that with, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I tell my entrepreneurs every day, it's like, you think about your job 100 hours a week, your business. I think about it maybe 6 to 8 hours a month. You're always going to know more about it. And so the danger of an operator becoming an investor is that listen, I'll tell you what to do right now. That's a real danger. So we try and balance our been there, done that with a pragmatic that says, we're backing entrepreneurs. That's what we do. And our job is to help them, but not try and do their job for them.
So I got to imagine in this group of young entrepreneurs, there's a variety of them that have, concealed a lot of self-doubt, probably massive amounts of overconfidence as well. Now we start to get into the concept of Mr. Monkey. So let's kind of pull these two themes together here. Who is Mr. Monkey? Who is he in our lives? What's he responsible for? How do we keep him off our back?
Yeah, well, so the simple concept, and I think that everybody has a voice inside their head that is holding them back. And the interesting thing about the voice is it shows up very differently. For me, it's been fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You're not good enough. What are you doing? You're over your heads. What's yours? Give me yours, Paz. Well, what's your voice?
That's a good one too. I think that it's not a matter of overconfidence. It's a matter of, and it's not imposter syndrome, because I feel like I am totally where I'm supposed to be, having the success that I'm having now, and I'm proud of it. I think it's about, being confident in the right room in front of the right bunch of people.
Yeah.
I think it's letting my magic shine, which I think I've been doing a lot more lately, and the world has been opening up to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to take some bigger risks. I mean, I did that. I just launched a brand new company. We could talk about it offline, Web3 division of recruiting called Probably Nothing Talent. And that's my big swing. That's my big, hairy, audacious goal right now. But there's always that monkey on your back. And I think for me, one of the things, the monkey that I've had on my back for many years before I got into recruiting for the last 7 years, was failure. I mean, I went through a lot of failures in my career, and I always kind of have that chip on my shoulder of the underdog, but I figured out how to harness it and refocus it to use it as a driver for me.
Yeah, well, you've just described what my recommendation of the book is, and my general belief is that you have this voice, and sometimes the voice can be, it show up as apathy or putting things off. Like, there's all different ways of this, and I actually think the voice never goes away. In my case, I thought, I had this take a company public. I've got a great family. I made this much money. Like, at some point, shut up. And to me, it helped me. So where I finally got to was it helped me personify the voice. And so I looked at the voice and said, all right, imagine it's a big, hairy beast, like, like this thing coming on here, here it is.
There it is.
Right. And it's just yelling at me, telling me all these things. And the more I did that, then I was able to say, okay, that's what it is, and put it in its place and respect it for what it is and for what it isn't. And that really was the foundation for the book. And the monkey's the star of the book. So I tried to have fun with it. I didn't want to write a memoir.
It's also good for marketing.
Yeah, it's good for marketing. But, listen, the Mike Smerklo business story is like a blog story. But like a book was, how do I bring this to life? And so what I wanted to do was make the monkey the big character in the book. And then each chapter in the formula, there's a shape formula, has what I call monkey minders, or specific tips that I learned from myself, or more importantly from others, about how to keep the monkey voice at bay.
Interesting. Who's this book for?
When I wrote it, I thought of my mom. Because here's my general belief. I generally believe the world needs more entrepreneurs. I think all the problems in the world, big, small, can be solved by entrepreneurship. Not everything under the sun, but if you think about global warming to economic, to job creation, I'd much rather vote for and depend on entrepreneurs than I would government or not-for-profit. So my general belief is we need more entrepreneurs. Secondly, we need more diversity in entrepreneurship. And this isn't like a rah-rah. It's like, listen, we certainly need more diversity on the normal metrics. We also need people like, I thought about my single mother, not educated, worked hard. Like, how can you get someone like that to take a step forward and create a company that maybe employs 4 or 5 people? And so it was really around that, and also current entrepreneurs that don't end up like, I just finished We Crashed. We don't need Adam Newmans from WeWork in the world. We need smart people that kind of do the right thing and continue to contribute.
So I like to, talk to authors about the process. What did you learn about yourself through the process of writing this book?
Well, I learned that, like most things, had I known how hard it was going to be, I wouldn't have done it. Right? It was.
How long did it take you to write it? From first word to print?
Yeah, I mean, I had been writing blog posts I'd been writing about this for a couple of years, but bringing it all together, it probably took me 1.5 years from actually like, okay, I'm going to do this, to having a physical copy. I love the writing process. The editing process just is really hard, and it's humbling. When you get an editor and they're like, that doesn't make sense, or that story, which is really interesting, has to go. I love stories, so it was hard to just see these like, I love it stories, and there it goes.
That's my story.
That's my story. But so that it took about 1.5 years. But I learned about myself is I love the creative process. I also learned I have massive respect for creators. I kind of had it. I'm a big book and movie person. But my goodness, like the people that do this every day and depend on their economic viability, it's like, wow. And third, I realized I don't think I'll ever want to write a book again. It's like, okay,
It's tough.
good.
No, it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So let me ask you today, like, what's your most effective weapon in fighting self-doubt without becoming this like crazy egomaniac or losing the value that doubt could have in showing you those potential areas for growth? Because there's an importance of doubt, right, in keeping you in check and keeping you in line. So what are some of those tools that folks could use?
Yeah, well, I mean, I talk about like the book has a formula, and I won't completely learn the book, but it's called the SHAPE formula, and it helps me a lot. It's called SHAPE, so it's self-awareness, getting help, authenticity, persistence, expectations. Those are all about what I think are the most important mental aspects of entrepreneurship. But I think
100%.
self-awareness and help back and forth. Like, where am I? What am I dealing with? Where am I showing up? And who can help me get better? It's just so easy, but so hard.
Let's talk about self-awareness, because that's a big one for me. I mean, I spoke about it ad nauseum. Like I had my self-awareness epiphany, 7 years ago when I was working in marketing and advertising, and I got let go. I was working for Gary Vaynerchuk, and I got let go from Vayner, and I had to have that moment, that self-awareness epiphany, where I realized that I wasn't being self-aware.
Yeah.
And then once I finally had that, I fell down the hole. And I had to look back up. I was like, holy shit, who am I? What am I doing? What do I want to be doing? What am I good at? What am I not good at? How am I showing up in this world? And I think everyone needs to have that. And I think self-awareness is so tough because it's regulated by our ego and perception and the environment and what we think others are thinking of us.
Yeah. It's
right?
so,
like if I didn't think about, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, if I had to break through the fact that I gave a shit about what people think about me. I don't care what anyone says. Everyone cares what other people think about them. But I had to get rid of that in order to break through. And that was a hard one for me.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, it's really, we actually looked at Next Coast and we did this long longitudinal study of 6 years we've been in business and said, okay, look at our best entrepreneurs and our worst entrepreneurs. What's the one common characteristic they have in common? And it almost is like, just, wow, it's self-awareness. And self-awareness is like everything you said. But it's really hard to get objective feedback, not what does mom think I'm good at or my spouse or what do I think, like objective feedback, and then look at it and go, I'm good at this. I'm not good at this. And then the second really hard part is like, what do you do about it? What do you do about it?
It always comes back to simply, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And, I mean, I say it all the time. It's ad nauseum. Like, Gary said to me, stop focusing on the things that you suck at and double down on your strengths. And you get to a certain point of your life where, like, I'm going to get so much further ahead if I focus on what I'm good at and get better at that and park all those things that, like, I was maybe trying to do that weren't really that important and refocus your energy. So, Mike, let's bring it home here. What is the single greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every day?
Oh, it's such a great question. And there's like a gazillion of them. I mean, I do think like the basic things, I heard this early on, and whether I do this every day or not, but it's like, do what's right, do your best, treat other people like you want to be treated. And that's like motherhood and apple pie. But every time I think about things, do what's right. What would your mom say? Like, I used to say something like, what would your mom say? If you're going to think about doing something, would your mom say that's good or bad? Do your best and treat other people like you want to be treated. I probably rarely act on all three of those, but to me, that's just like the simple lens to view the world.
That's interesting. And, I haven't asked this question in a while too, but I'm curious with you and your background here. What would you say your superpower is? I mean, what do you do better than almost, anyone on this planet that makes you, Mike, who you are?
Nothing. I'm not that, like, I was raised to humility is so cornerstone to everything I do. I do think if I had one superpower, it's the ability to help people position their business and think about how they can resonate with customers. I'm obsessed with customers. I'm obsessed with why people make decisions around business. Why do you pay $5 for a Starbucks, but you won't put $5 in your savings account? Why do I spend $100 on a bottle of wine, but not on a pair of shoes? Like all these nonsense things. But so I think I'm obsessed with that. And I think in business context, probably positioning. And then I think on the personal side, what people would say is I don't have a great filter. I tell people what I think about where they are. And I think it's positive, but sometimes
it is. And last but not least, you look back on your life, you look back on your upbringing that many would say was not setting you up to be in a position of success in your life. And you had to overcome a lot, and you had to fight, and you had to take responsibility for all of your success. And you look back in those times, and what was that fire? What was that compass? What pulled you in the right direction to pull yourself up and harness that inner tenacity that you have today? And on the flip side, gratitude of your family, your life that you created, sitting in beautiful Austin, Texas. Mike Smerklo, what is your compass in life? What is your North Star?
It's really simple. Like I look right now and I think about 3 attributes of my life, and I'm blessed. And I look at my upbringing, I'm like, thank God. Like, what a blessing. Because everything that happened to me was foundational to where I am today. But right now it's like, am I a good father? Am I a good husband? And do I help in my day job? Do I help entrepreneurs chase their dream? That's easy. And I don't believe, I hear some, I listen to your show, by the way, as we close out, and what a great job you do. You bring some amazing folks in. And I hear these people that had much more aspirational answers to this question. To me, I look at it and go, did I show up as well? I've been married for 20 years. Am I a good husband? I got 4 kids. Am I helping them get ready for the world and hopefully help entrepreneurs chase their dream and build businesses?
Mike, that's how you do it, man. That's what it's all about. And I completely agree with you. And I always say this all the time. My success metric is raising my kids to be incredible contributors to this planet and be better humans than my wife and I. And if I do that, then mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, keep up the great work. This is a really, really cool show and such an eclectic group of people. I'm a huge fan. It's awesome what you're doing.
And I appreciate it. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. Hang with me one moment here as we wrap up. I want everyone to check out MikeSmerklo.com. I'm going to link it up in the comments here, and you can take Mike's entrepreneur survival test to see if you have the mental toughness to survive a marathon of being an entrepreneur. Believe me, I'm in it. It is hard as fuck. And please check out Mike's book, Mr. Monkey and Me, a real survival guide for entrepreneurs. And it's out now on Amazon, and you know where to find it all. Mike, thank you again so much for joining me. And everyone listening, you know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. If you like this show, leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. Mike, where could folks connect with you directly?
It's at MikeSmerklo.com is where all the information is. The book's on Amazon. And last but not least, every dollar of the book goes to charity I set up for diverse and underrepresented students interested in entrepreneurship. So if you buy the book, it's going to help that. It's on Amazon and at MikeSmerklo.com.
Massive. I love it. That's fantastic. So let's wrap it up. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on other social media channels. Remember, take care of each other, look out for one another, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search The Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.